Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Live on tape from a secret location in historic downtown St. John's, the most easterly city in North America, comes in the Library of Graphic Literature with your host, me, Wallace Ryan. So I'm here in the library. I actually had to go at this earlier, but I ran out of battery power halfway through, so I had to scrap it. So I did actually do an unboxing, and I'm going to do a fake unboxing here now. Oh my god, look at this. Oh, whoa. Anyway, so today, the first thing for today up for discussion is this wonderful artist edition from P. Craig Russelll, Strange Dreams. Oh, this thing is beautiful. Beautiful. It contains, for the most part, the classic 80s Killraven graphic novel from Marvel's early graphic novel line, and it's absolutely, as usual with P. Craig, it's stunning. There's some great little collages there. There's even some Doctor Strange here. He does a mean Doctor Strange, I tell you. And then there's later on some stuff from the early Killraven days, which I still absolutely adore. I've always been a big fan of P. Craig and of Don McGregor too, who wrote the Killraven story within. Both masters of the art form, and if you're a fan of either of them, you have to pick this one up. It's a beauty. Now, our artist editions, a lot of people are always asking me, Wallace, what is an artist edition? Well, let me tell you. Artist edition basically is more or less what you've seen just then. They're basically collections, books. This one's of The Manhunter by Walter Simonson and the late Archie Goodwin. And they're collections of these stories, but they're basically scans of the original artwork. So basically you get to see the artwork as it was before it was scanned or photographed, as it was back in those days, and colored. So with these you can see everything from touch-ups in the artwork, different things like that, changes, stuff taped in sometimes. You can see the tape on the top and the bottom of the pages there, or like this one there, they're just added in at the end there, the lettering, and you can see even a little bit of white out there and that, but they're pretty cool. So artist edition, like I say, it'll usually be a collection of a short run. First one I ever bought was the Mazzucchelli Daredevil, which was his classic Born Again series, which once again a big favorite of mine. But this one I got also because it had another favorite story of mine. All of these bought by Simonson, but one of my favorite of all time is this Dr. Fate. Oh, come on. Is this Dr. Fate's story he did. Well, there it goes. That's the opening thing. Martin Pascoe, writer, Walter Simonson artist. This was one of my favorite comics growing up. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if I actually have it here. Oh yes, as a matter of fact, look, I have it here on my spinner rack. This is one of my favorite comics from my childhood. And it's actually one of the few that I still have, actually. Anyway, so this once again, like I said, some of his better works, his Metal Men thing, stuff like that, and then Captain Fur, and then of course some sketches in the back. So artist editions are basically, the artwork for a story. Now you have something else called an artifact edition, which is basically more like this, where this is the Watchmen Artifact Edition, and it's not a complete story. Any of it is just basically a collection of different pages from different issues and all that. So, I mean, it's kind of cool, but I prefer the artist editions where you actually have the whole story. If I had known this was an artifact edition, I don't know if I would have bought it, only discovering what it was after I bought it. You also have sort of portfolio style, artist edition, stuff like that. And they're pretty cool too. I have one by Walt Simonson, the Lawnmower Man, and a couple more. And they're pretty darn cool. So that's enough about art editions. Let's get back to the matter at hand, the comics this week. Or the books this week. Now here's what, feel that weight, hey? This is the Golden Age Batman Omnibus, Volume 4. Once again, I love these omnibuses. I mean, what a weight for comics. I know as a kid I would have loved this. But in this volume here is basically chock-a-block with great Dick Sprang artwork. Dick Sprang was one of the early classic artists on Batman. Quite iconic in a lot of ways. Even though you might see Bob Kane there and all that, like the signature and all that, this is all the work of Dick Sprang. As a matter of fact, there's I don't know if you can see it, but I even have the Dick Sprang Batmobile that came out in a series of them there a few years ago. But for any Batman fan, you gotta get this. And I'm a big Batman fan. Okay, let's see what else we have here for today. Oh, yes. Oh, we'll debag this one anyway. What comes in the bag today? Oh, okay. Today we have another book here. Bolivar by Rubin. As it says here, what if your next door neighbor was a dinosaur? I got this because, of course, having lived in New York and read the description of it, I had to pick it up. And even what I've looked at so far, I love it. So even without finishing this book, I would recommend it. Just as I was going through the first few pages and then scanning the rest, I could almost read the story without even reading the text. Beautifully done, and pick it up. And let's see. Actually, it was a pretty short, small week this week in terms of books. That was really the only two books that I bought this week, and I usually buy at least 3 or 4 books a week. And actually, that's one tip to you people out there, because a lot of people always ask me, how did you get such a collection? You must be a millionaire. I'm far from a millionaire, but I would buy religiously at least 1 book a week. And I've been at it for 23 years, so that's where the collection comes from. Now a new feature here. This, as a matter of fact, I've made sure to bring in another one of my prized comic book possessions here, a spinner rack. And basically I'm going to take stories from the spinner rack, even though they're inside books, and just talk about different comics and what they meant to me and stuff like that. In this one, the reason I picked this comic, or this book, sorry, is Legion of Superheroes Archives, Volume 10. The reason I picked this was, even though I'd read comics when I was a kid, I read comics from when I was 3 years old till, well, actually, really for most of my life, but I guess I didn't read them. I looked through them and all that. But I actually learned how to read from comics, so by the time I went to kindergarten at the age of 5, I could read by that point. I could even sign my own name, so shows you the power of comics. But when I was a kid, I can remember reading, and this would be early 1960s, I can remember The Atom, The Flash, Green Lantern in particular. I was big fans of those. But one of the comics I liked the most as a kid, and it actually helped me rekindle my love a few years later for comics, was the Legion of Superheroes. I used to get the adventure comics where they first appeared. I can remember getting comics from my aunt up the street, my Aunt V. When her kids were finished with the comics, she'd pack them up and send them down to us, and I'd read through them. And I hate to say, but I would actually even cut out some of the characters and play on the table with them, stuff like that. Even 16-year-old me would have killed 8-year-old me if he had to see me doing it. Anyway, I think I was 12 or 13 or whatever. I was sort of dilly-dallying in comics, you know, because I'd sort of fallen out of comics for a few years, but then around 10 or 11, I'd started buying comics here and there again. But it was only until, I think it was 1974, in which I bought this comic here, Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes number 200. Funny enough, actually, the store I bought it off is one block west of the library here, as it happens. The store's no longer there, but it was a drugstore, and it was around the corner from where my father's business was. So a lot of times when I'd be waiting to get a ride home with him after going downtown, I'd wander up to the drugstore and have it paw through the comics and stuff like that, and I started to buy them again. And this was one of the first ones I ever bought again. And this, of course, had beautiful, beautiful art in it by Dave Cockrum, who to me is one of the most underrated comic book artists out there. This issue, this was, of course, I couldn't wait to get this one when it came around next time. And by the time I bought this one, I was hooked again. And I was hooked for good. I collected comics from then on, and from comics into books into graphic novels and so on. But yeah, it was good old Superboy, starred the Legion of Superheroes number 200 that got me back into the game again. So that's a nice little story there from the old spinner rack. It's a beauty, hey? This actually, besides being a comic book artist and basically a comic collector and now a book collector and all that, I was at one point too, I owned my own store for a while. I had my childhood collection. This would have been in the early 90s. The economic conditions in my part of Canada were so bad that I had to do something to live. So I opened up a miniature comic book store and was stocked with my collection as the back issues. And I had a lot of back issues because I worked as a kid from the age of 12 on up, and during the summer times full time at my grandfather's grocery store. So for a kid, I had a lot of disposable income, and I disposed of it all in comics. And one of the things left over from that place, it was called the Daily Planet, was this spinner rack. And I'd never sell it, so don't go making any offers. I thought about talking about Marvel Masterworks in this episode, but I think I'll leave that for another time, because once I pulled out that artist's edition, I kind of had to wax eloquent about it and all that. But I think next week I'll have a chit chat about Marvel Masterworks, one of my favorite. Oh, as a matter of fact, they're there. One of my favorite collections out there. And if any of you have any suggestions, like, you know, what's your favorite Marvel Masterworks, stuff like that, and what's the Marvel Masterworks that you think that Marvel should do next? Okay, well, for me, that's it here from way out on the East Coast, where it's foggy and all that. As we say around here, thanks for having me over, and keep on buying those books. Okay, now let me turn you off. Goodbye.